Yes. So we are live now. We are live now.
Cool.
Nice.
Yes. Welcome everyone to all the listeners. Today we are going to bring a very new topic, interesting topic, but we also have an expert today for that topic. So first of all, Happy New Year to everyone who is listening to us, and wish you all the best for all your future projects that you are planning to do, and keep your mindset in the best possible positive way. As I always say that every day there is a new sun. So every day you have got a beginning, and every day you can bring new changes to yourself and also to everyone around you. So with that, today's topic is a bit, we can call it a bit serious, but not serious. I would say is more to do with our emotional well-being and more to do with how we manage such trauma in our life. And today we have a very esteemed guest speaker, which is Justine, who is our international hypnotherapy trainer, but also who owns Hypnosis New Zealand. And she is going to uncover a lot of things that we can do a little bit about traumas that we face. But the topic today I'm going to discuss, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be a very intense but very simple and sweet discussions that we can have and interact with each other. So the keynote speaker today is our Mrs Universe Malaysia 2022, all the way from Malaysia. So we have got 2 Kiwis and 1 Malaysian today to discuss, and she is going to share this domestic violence that she has experienced, and whether that was a domestic experience or what it was, but it is definitely has affected her trauma. But that hasn't stopped her. So with a positive note, I can talk now that she has gone through, but she is still the title owner. That means she has passed all the hurdles of the trauma. But how did she do? What she is still struggling with and how she is managing is a big thing for every human being that when we face trauma. So we will be uncovering lots of stories, real experiences of her. And then Justine and Hailey is our co-host today, who is, as usual, a good support for these various topics that we bring along to you. And she is going to also trigger some questions that she has got, which will be very interesting and interactive session. So we have got 4 beautiful humans here talking the real topic, which really matters to us. And people don't like to talk such topic, but I thought that it's good to talk about such topics, and why not make a New Year resolution that talk about the new topics that you don't like to talk, but topics that you like to improve, topics that you want to make changes in your life, because that is who we are. We can change anything what we want. And so without further delaying, I'm going to get straight into the introduction part of it, little from Justine, and then from Amanda, and then from Hailey. So over to you, Justine, first. Just give us a little introduction of you.
An introduction of myself. Well, as you said, I'm from New Zealand. I specialize in what I call trauma-informed hypnotherapy. So I own an organization that trains and regulates hypnosis and hypnotherapy in New Zealand. Also teach internationally for different organizations for different things, from hypnosis stuff to spirituality, using deeper levels of the mind stuff. With this topic today, I talk often on trauma and how it affects our brain and what's actually going on every day when we find ourselves triggered with emotions coming up in our body. A lot of the time when people do experience trauma and stuff in the past, our mind believes it's still happening, and I can go into that later, what's actually going on in our brain. And so we can get out of really hard situations, but find that even 20 years later, things that happened to us when we were very young or in our 20s could be affecting our life when it's supposed to be really good. We've moved on from that stuff, but yet every day is still a struggle, and kind of how to overcome that stuff, what to do and how to move on so that you can kind of leave the past in the past and have a really good life. Yeah, that's me.
That's great. Yeah, over to you, Hailey. Haley is our co-host, but she is also coming up with today some beautiful questions that we would be interacting and seeing how we can answer those and get the answers from the expert, Justine. So tell us something about you, Haley. What are we going to do today?
My favorite passions are art, nature, and fashion design. Do dog training. I love property investing. But ultimately, for me, what I want to hear about today is I'm really focused on prevention where you can. I mean, you would hope that this is something that we would never have to deal with, right? So I would love to hear about the key warning signs that we need to look out for in new relationships. Me being single, having been in relationships that they do tie along this kind of line, and there are signals that I've missed where you look back and you realize, oh, actually that might have been kind of obvious, but at the time you don't know. So I'd love to hear more about that, and I would also really love to hear about the opinions or the feelings that you might have in terms of compassion for the abusers. I know they say hurt people, but a lot of the people who have caused pain in my life and other people's life, they're human beings just like us. They struggle with the pain. They don't like the way that they've behaved. Some people are more aware of their own behaviors than others. I would really like to know what kind of support we can provide for the people who have hurt us or have hurt people we love, and people who they don't like who they are inside, they don't like what they've done, what they can do to increase their sense of well-being and not continue the cycle. This is what I like to figure out. How do we prevent the cycle? How do we stop the cycle? And how do we help abusers become people who value themselves? That's what I want to know.
Now we go to Amanda, our keynote speaker today, and we did a very good real connections with her, where we uncovered lots of her real life journey. And it was incredible that the journey that she has so far. And I think I wish her all the best also in the future to have that journey. But today she's going to talk more about her deeper traumas and deeper experiences that will really uncover a lot of things today. So Amanda, tell something about you, and then we'll get straight into it, basically.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually the reigning queen of Mrs Malaysia Universe 2022. Currently, I'm still working as a private banker for one of the local bank in Malaysia, Maybank. So I'm happy to be here to share about this topic, because I think the reason why when I'm joining the platform also, they're given by the various of experience. Somehow we have to identify what it is all about. It is about yourself, or it is about the other people giving to you. So, the journey itself is not as easy. So where eventually I would say that I'm actually in corporate. That's where I'm trying to identify using my voice to come to Mrs. Universe platform. Then one of the main topic that we have to talk about is domestic violence. So this is also one of the important topic that every country, every woman of us, every contestant, they have to present on this topic. Be it a lot of people, they will it actually, how do you define and how do you look into domestic violence? That's where I think it's good that we could share, so I can get some insight perhaps from Justine's, like from Haley, we all get together and raise the awareness, first thing. And secondly, how we could identify it. And thirdly, what are the I would say the steps that we could take to either to avoid it, to minimize, or how we're able to overcome all this. So if we could, given the voice to able to help others, I think this will be fantastic. At least we could minimize the damages, the hurts that we have, what are we gone through. So these are the things I really would like to talk about it today. I'm really truly excited for today's session.
Excellent. So I think we'll start with you, Amanda, continuing from what you said just now. And I think I wanted to first simply give us some basic scenarios of when it started, how old you were, or what young mind you were, how mature mind is. Because, it starts from our maturity, our mindsets, and lots of traditions and cultural backgrounds and all sorts of things affect to this title or to this topic, domestic violence. Because domestic violence can be seen as physical abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse, all sorts of things we can experience. And that comes with lots of cultural backgrounds, that comes with lots of traditions, that comes with a lot of system based that we are trapped into, and we become a victim. Sometimes you think that, okay, we can communicate effectively, but it doesn't go effectively. And sometimes we do lots of sacrifices and lots of compromises, thinking that this is the norm, or which is the norm, or what is the norm. And that is something that I wanted to ask you, Amanda, that when you realized that, when did you realize, how long did it took you to your mature mind that you are into a situation which is called domestic violence?
It took me many years to realize. I would say my first attempt was very young, that I come from a family where my dad is someone that's very strict. I think it's all about come to family structure as well. If you have a family structure where, your parents is very, I don't use it. In Asian family, we use it very uptight, very reserved. They don't show love or shower love that much. At the younger girls, perhaps at your teenage age, you long for care and love. You would try to get it from someone else. That is from your partner. Yeah. Unfortunately, when you got from your partner, it's very obvious. If, let's say, it's physical violence, I could identify that. And I actually experienced it in my life as well. So, and I'm a strong believer that as we shouldn't have that. So that's where it's very fast for me to withdraw from that relationship and to move forward. So fast forward about 5 years later, where I'm like 25, 26 years old, I got into a relationship planning to get married. And I just notices that perhaps a lot of people sharing, it's maybe opinion not right. You don't get into a lot of conversations. It's like you just find that each and every time you are doing the wrong thing. The wrong is about you. And I don't know why. And, it's repeating, you're having doubt in yourself. You're thinking it's like for you, you're making the mistake so much. So that's where after my divorce, that's why I say I truly thank my mom. And I don't think any woman have the lucky chance just like me, where I got into corporate. That's where I get back to the environment where they have all the protocol, how to, go through all the processes and everything, the interactions, professional. That's when, after many, many years, only I realized, especially recently, we have the terms that we talk about gaslighting. Then only I realized, I'm actually being through that emotional, trauma and the emotional violence, during the beginning days. And I couldn't believe that. So that's where I think it's important for me to bring it up, to raise the awareness, to let people able to identify that if ever these kind of situations ongoing or it ever happen, we have to identify and we have to know how to diagnose it, and we get it right, and then we fix it there and there, and we do not let this thing to escalate, to become bigger, to allow it to eat into us. And I think that is very important for us to know. So that's my experience throughout. If I would like to share with you, it took me many years. I don't have professional helps, and only finally I realized that it is actually happening to me.
Yeah.
I would love to know what is gaslighting to you. I know the word gets thrown around a lot, more and more as the recognition for the term comes up. But what is it for you? How do people know when it's beginning, especially early on in a relationship? We often feel like we get confused. We wonder, is it us? Are we imagining things? And then slowly it builds up, and we don't even recognize it until our self-worth is really low, and it just becomes even harder to pick it. So how do we notice the key signals? What is it?
For me, I think it's quite worse. Until the end, it's the the decision to get divorced. Then after that, where all these things, it's not my decision to ask for that. And then only I realized that, oh, I'm actually being dumb. I'm actually, a person that do not want me anymore. Is it because of any particular reason? And I think at that time, I'm trying to sacrifice and blending and giving on a lot. Where people were trying to say that, Amanda, you are very ambitious. But if you would like to have a family or whatever, you have to tone down and compromise. And I thought I'm doing the right thing at that time. A person who trying to tell you, you are not that good. You have to be doing things according to what they want you to do. And they tell you that they love you, they care for you. Mm-hmm. And only right now I realize that it's scary. It's not supposed to have that. In a relationship also, it should have element of empowerment. Both of us should grow and improve together. Could you imagine at that time? I thought, perhaps, I have to do some self-reflections. I need to improve. There is a very thin line of positive empowerment and about trying to manipulate you, trying to make you think you are not good enough because they just wanted you to mold and to grow according to what they want you to do.
Amanda, with your with the part, is it the husband, the one that you said was gaslighting? If you go back to the very beginning of that relationship and you think about what we call red flags, I ask this to my clients a lot. When was the first time, if you look back now that you're at the end of it, what was the first sign? And it's really interesting when I do talk to people, they go back to the very beginning and they come up with these really interesting little things that started at the very beginning of that relationship. If you look back now, what was one of the first red flags that made you kind of notice? Now looking back, you wouldn't notice at the time, but now looking back, what was it that about this person that now you look back and go, I should have walked away then?
All right.
Go right back to the start of that relationship. Yeah. Where was it? What happened? Like, what comes to mind?
All right. If you asked me at that time, I should know earlier that.
Just the first red flags, the first times that you go, now.
Correct. You are so right. Because I couldn't understand until much later, I should have identified earlier where, the person, it can be treated you in a way that, it's very angry manner, but it turn away around to the friends and to the business associate, they can be like nothing happened.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
And it's actually treated with the family member, like the parents, it can be so heated. And the value, because for me, I'm embrace my value being Asian or being whatever. I think family value is very important. You treat your parents and anything. So at that time, I couldn't even able to tell. I just thought, it must be something the family have given him so much trauma. But I couldn't realize that actually it's not. It's, this person can treat you or the family the way that they want it to be, and they're trying to control, they're trying to manipulate. But when at the outside, people will not realize his character as such.
Yeah. So he was, so what you noticed at first was the way he treated you and his immediate family was very different to the performance he put around other people that he didn't know so well. Yeah. So that was one of your first red flags, as I call it. What else comes to mind for him?
It's
very early on.
It's from this, actually, I should just know and I give it a stop. So can you imagine someone keep telling you it's for your own good? I'm doing it because for you. Which actually is not. It's the way they wanted it. It's like a predator, they want to form the way that you want it to be. They just want to take over you and they eat over you. You somehow, you just know it, but you couldn't fight it. You get what I mean? At that time, you feel so small about yourself. You just think that, I think I just should, do not upset him. And you are tiptoeing, very afraid that you say anything, he will just blow on the next second. You can't be yourself speaking your mind. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, walking on eggshells, as they call it.
Correct. Like yes.
Around. Yeah. So how quick did that happen for you? So when you got into this relationship, was it quite quick that you noticed that, or did he kind of buy you into it and then bring in the stuff?
Yes. it's like, according to it, actually, I would say average, we from friends, we grow into it with supposedly to support each other. It's like, we kind of like each other, we are all right with each other, and somehow, and things develop a bit funny when things we getting a bit more intimate, and you realize and you recognize the symptom, and you thought it's perhaps this is, this person deeper, and it's all right, you just brush it off. And that thing is actually, it's become more intense. So now if you ask me, I think back, it's actually at that beginning, I should able to identify this is not right, especially where you're not able to speak your mind, you're not able to reason. And you've asked me, I think this is already one of the red flags that we should take a stop and we have to review.
Yeah. I find with that kind of this relationship you're talking about, that personality type tends to prey on people that are confident and are happy within themselves, maybe because it's a quality they don't have deep within. But when they're with that person, I talk about a wave matching in relationships. If this person's got good energy and they feel good about themselves, but underneath this person does it, when you're in a relationship, you got to match, right? And so they do things and say things to put you down, to make you question yourself, so that you're rolling on the same level, which is actually low self-esteem. So I find that that at the start, it's quite often people say to me, yeah, I go in the relationship, it's quite good, but then they start becoming really critical and you can't do anything right. And then your self-esteem goes right down to where they're at. And they go up a little bit because they have the power. But that's a really good thing to note, is that if you're in a relationship, and at first you are good and confident, but very quickly over time you're starting to doubt yourself, you're questioning yourself, and then you're starting to look like you've got issues and they haven't, and maybe they are right, maybe I am crazy, or maybe I am stupid, all of the stuff that happens.
Yes.
It's an early warning sign that happens quite quickly. So it's a really good red flag to kind of watch out for. How you feel about yourself. If there's a change, then there's something not right.
Do you have any details and knowledge that you can share on the cycle of abuse? I know from my own experience and research, they say that women try and leave, men, it happens to both of us. We try and leave about 7 or so times before we're actually strong enough to do so. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I hear that is because we get to a point where we've had enough. We start to recognize it, and then they start to see that we are at that point where we feel stronger.
Okay.
They bring themselves up to, they bring a honeymoon period back, and you feel like everything's getting better.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
I can give you some information, not so much around statistics and things like that, because I don't specialize in domestic violence, more in the mind. But I'll tell you something really interesting that our brain does that is not fun. And what it is that when we are in a negative emotion, or when we have stuff going on around us, so our nervous system is wired, what it does, which is really, really, really annoying, is, say if someone's scared of spiders and they walk into a room and there's a spider in the room, right? Most of us that aren't scared of spiders, we don't care. We don't even notice there's a spider in our room, but our mind is always going to move us towards the threat. So a person that's scared of spiders will know where that spider is. Their pupils will even go very small and fine. So when someone's nervous system is wired by looking at their eyes, they'll go very small. And they will, especially kids and big spiders, they'll know where that spider is, right? So our mind is wired, when our nervous system is wired and we're in a negative emotion or a negative feeling in our body, it's wired to move us towards the threat and the danger to keep us safe, okay? So it moves us towards the thing that is dangerous, so we know where it is, so we can run away from it. So what I find when women are in, or men are in situations that are abusive, you say to them, why don't you just leave? I can't leave. Well, you've got a front door. Why don't you just walk out the front door? I'll come and pick you up. No, I can't leave. And the thing is, your mind is wired so that you know where that danger is. So what you find is your mind is moving you towards the abuser to keep you safe. It's You know where the abuser is, at what time they're coming home. You contact them all the time. You're waiting to make sure everything is perfect, but you're waiting for them to come home. Because once they're home and you can see them, you know where they are and you can get away from the danger. Does that make sense? So what you find when people do get into an abusive relationship, it's very hard to get out. They want to get out. They know it's not good, but their mind is so focused on the abuser for safety and survival. So it takes a long time to get out. And what you find when people are in really abusive situations, it takes an intervention where someone will actually come in, take the person out, and they'll be secretly trying to ring that abuser, trying to, oh no, I should go back. You hear it. I hear it all the time. And it's not until they're in a safe place where they can go out and walk, where they can breathe, where they can maybe feel a little bit calmer, that their front part of their brain will kick back in and they'll think logically and they'll go, why didn't I leave a year ago? And the reason is they couldn't. They couldn't leave a year ago because their mind was wired to stay and know where that abuser is at all times for safety and survival. We're wired. If you lived in the wild and there were tigers walking around, you would want to know where that tiger was, because if you go to sleep and you don't know where it is, you're dead, right? So there's all these women. When I hear people say to me, you know, I can't believe I stayed with him for 10 years and he treated me like that. I get it. That person, their brain was doing exactly what they needed to do to survive. So they don't need to feel guilty. They don't need to feel bad. They don't feel like there's nothing wrong with that person. Their nervous system is doing exactly what it needs to do. But sometimes it takes an intervention, and it's not so much you coming to a realization. It's more people getting you out, calming you down, taking you away. And I tell you what, those people do not like you going away for a weekend with your friends. They'll keep you home. You know what I mean? So that's what's happening in our brain. And when you start to take away the stigma, this is a big thing for you, Amanda. People believe that they are broken, or there must be something wrong with me because I stayed in a relationship, or I must, maybe I am crazy because why would I have done that? You're not. Your brain is working exactly how it's meant to. It's just, we live in a bit of a different world. So our brain is kind of mucking up a little bit. It's pointing us towards, why do we get in? Why do we attract a person that cheats every time? No, we might change we might get with a spiritual person instead of a real non-spiritual person. We might date someone with a different nationality. We might date someone with a different age, but hello, they do exactly the same thing. They all cheat on me. It's because our mind is wired to point out threat and danger before creativity and moving forward. So what we need to do, women and men, is to do our work. We need to do our work on ourselves to get a good relationship, because until we do that, our mind is wired to point us towards threat and danger. So Mr. Perfect might walk past you, Hayley, and if there's still healing that needs to be done, you'll look at him and go, I don't really like his shoes. And there'll be something about him, he just won't be attractive towards you. But this guy might come along and your subconscious goes, that looks familiar. He's all right. And I walk into that and the same thing happens again. So it's always, it's just the way our mind works. We're either moving towards safety and survival, or we're moving towards creativity and getting something good. So if we work on ourselves, things change. But okay.
Just on that, Justine, so do you think that change is not likable by human beings or human brain? Often changes that happen, or we want to accept or embrace the changes. To take that bold step of accepting who we are and how we are needs a lot of courage, because we are always looking at the same old thing. We are always looking at the same old thing. And
it takes courage to change. It does take courage to change. And sometimes it takes situations to create change. I mean, we either change because one day we wake up and we've had enough. We might change in a abusive relationship because something actually forces it, meaning you actually get hurt and you can't hide it anymore. So change happens in many ways. But it does start with actually, courage to go, right, you know what? I've been in this relationship hasn't been healthy. I'm not in this relationship, but now I need to do the work. Now I need to look inside myself and work out what I need to do to not attract that kind of relationship again. I'm never saying that people attract consciously. I'm not saying people go out there and say, hey, I want some guy that's going to treat me bad, but the more you get in touch with who you are authentically, the more you get to read the signs of people, the more you, if say a guy does gaslight, you know, and when you are in a more space of knowing what you want, you might actually be able to pick it up and go, you know what, I've seen this before and I'm not going down here again. And even though this guy is amazing, I'm just not doing it. And then you have the confidence and the courage to actually go, you know what, I deserve better than this. And you can walk away early on. And that's what we're saying about, it's really interesting when you get to the end of a relationship, when you actually look back to the start of it and go, when was the first time? I had a client a while ago, this was quite a while ago, and I asked her, when was the first time, you know, that you noticed that there was actually something wrong? And the answer she gave me was like on the second date. And it was to do with paying for food or something that you would consider to be quite chivalrous or something. But the way the guy had actually paid was quite, now she looks back, was actually what it was like in the relationship, really dominant, really quite walking on eggshells. And she said, looking back, that was the first time, you know, but she would have got a feeling then. He would have done that and she would have had a feeling come up in her body and knowing that, hey, I didn't like that. And if we're good within ourselves, you know, and we're in a place that we know what we want, we would probably walk away then, you know, in hindsight.
If you struggle to leave your abuser, or you still feel a sense of love, which I know you just tend to feel.
Yeah, totally. I know what you're talking about.
Have you had many people who have come together as couples where the abuser really does want to heal genuinely? And have you experienced true healing with them both? Or is it one of those things where the abuser will often, he'll take the steps to try and keep the person around and really find change? Or is there much hope?
Okay, so it depends on the personality. So for me, in this kind of situation where you see gaslighting and real narcissism, because, you know, we all have narcissistic traits and everyone goes around saying I had a narcissistic partner, blah, blah. You know, we hear, everyone says it. And there's different levels of it. To me, if two people, and this is, I have students, because I spend most of my time training now, and I have students coming up and saying to me, and they're like, I'm working with a wife, the husband seems to be quite narcissistic and he wants to come in and do sessions with me to help. And I've got a friend who is a psychiatrist, and she talks to me a lot about this kind of disorder. Most often what happens with people that are really in that disorder is they're doing that just to put on a face, just to say I've done it and this is your problem. So I wouldn't say, when it comes to general everyday relationships, not so much these abusive ones, for maybe two people not getting on well, maybe someone having an affair, things like that, there is always hope if two people are prepared to work on it. And for me, a lot of the time, behaviors, when someone is doing a behavior that they don't want to be doing, they actually recognize the behavior, they don't want to be doing it. To me, we have unhealed personalities that live inside of us. And when a feeling comes up in our body, those personalities take over and they have character traits. So if I'm working with people in a relationship and maybe say the partner that's causing trouble is a guy, and he has certain behavior traits that are coming through that I'm noticing are more due to a response. So maybe something happens, he gets wound up, a feeling comes over him, and then he acts like a child, or he gets aggressive or does things like that. To me, that's something that we can work on. There's a bit of trauma there that needs to be done, as long as it's not hard on the other partner in the relationship, because we've got to look at both of them. But when you're talking about that personality that Amanda's talking about, where from the very beginning they're putting you down and they're gaslighting and, you know, that really, really destructive, abusive stuff, I would be questioning why the person themselves is coming to me asking to help the partner, like what's going on for them to want to stay in that kind of relationship. So before I would even consider let's work on the partner, I'd be like let's work on you. Why are you wanting to be in that relationship? What's drawing you there? I deal with a lot of spiritual people that say he's my soulmate and blah blah blah, but in actual fact what's happening is there's a trauma thing going on. Like maybe some developmental trauma from you is attracted to the situation in that relationship, and because it's unhealed, you're being drawn back to that. But I would be getting the person that is wanting a destructive relationship back into a space where they can look at it without a trauma response or without their nervous system wired, where they can actually make a decision, is this really what I want? Because they usually don't. You know, once you're in a really good space, very spiritual, open people tend to see the inner child of the person that is playing up. And I've been here, I had a near-death experience on the hands of a partner, and that wasn't that many years ago. So very abusive in the end. Well, abusive to the point of getting to leave my body for a little while. But the thing is, we tend to, when you are quite open, or when you are able to see people for who they really are, we tend to overlook the human characteristics and not good stuff, and we tend to see the little child that maybe didn't have a good relationship with mum and dad when they were young, or you know, you can have people do really destructive behavior, but you can understand why they're doing that, so I forgive them, without actually going, you know what, you know who you need to love first is yourself. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, maybe this person is being like that because when they were young they had a destructive childhood, but they need to do the healing themselves. Do you know what I mean? They need to see it for what it is and heal themselves. And you staying there and accepting it and it being okay and understanding that, oh, he's only like that because of this, is not helping him change or grow, and it's totally not helping you, if that makes sense. You've got to sit back, and it is really, really hard. We've all had those relationships where the connection is incredibly strong and you keep on getting drawn back, but you've got to ask why is your mind, or why are you being drawn back to a destructive relationship, and what's underneath that? Because generally for me it doesn't end up being quite spiritual. It's something that we need to work on from either developmental stuff from childhood, or there's stuff within you that needs to be sorted. And at the end of that, you know, you might choose to, that person might go and do their healing, and they might see their stuff and they might work on their trauma, and it might just be that, and you might end up coming together and having an amazing relationship. But the sitting there and going, I still want to be that, I know why he is the way he is and I still want to be there with him, is something that you need to look within. Why, like at what age did I decide that I was worthy of this kind of relationship? You know, and that's a really good question to ask yourself. You know, when you are thinking about that person and wanting to go back to that person, have a sit and think how old you are. You might find that you're actually acting like a little 6-year-old girl who's waiting for mum and dad to come home because they've been at work all day. You might, you might find that the personality that's sitting there longing for that relationship to work is not the 40-year-old sitting in the chair right now. It's an unhealed personality from childhood or from teenage years that's waiting for something to happen that didn't happen. And so, when I do my training with people for working with, it's called memory reconsolidation and trauma work, we tend to bring up these feelings that people have and take them back to the first time. And it usually goes way back really young. And we sort that memory out at the very start. We don't go through trauma. I don't teach people that because I work with severe sexual abuse and things. So there's no need to talk about it. There's no need to re-experience it. We need to take the energy off memories. But what I find is if I'm sitting there talking to someone that is having a conversation with me about wanting to go back to a destructive thing, I'm not talking to the person that walked in the room. I'm talking to a personality that's coming out that needs healing. And so I tend to work with that personality. And then when you come back into your body and you're all integrated, and one 40-year-old person, looking for someone, you actually find someone that you want to be with. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, just on
how
that,
the brain works.
Yeah, just on that, what I think I wanted to ask Amanda, because see, for initially when I said whether the system around us, whether the traditions around us, the culture background around us plays an important role, because we are subconsciously trained that way, or traditionally been taught that way, you can call it. But when you talked about self-love or loving yourself, and also another part is the spiritual way of understanding your own and how to live freely. These two are very important aspects which people do realize at some stage of their journey, but they don't realize because they are grown out of a relationship. In relationships, they are told or taught to be not self-love, but love others first.
Right.
What it is. And so it's a great mindset change and courage that it needs. So I wanted to touch on this, where Amanda could throw some light on that. How important was that, played an important role for her in these relationships when she was, and what effect that was for her to change or come out of that comfort zone to make this hard decision of divorce and then separating herself. And then I can go to you, Justine, and find out what exactly we could do out of this subconscious mind that we have. But also traditionally, we are told to love others in the relation, in the family, just like normal. Tell us something, Amanda, what really was your trigger point that you did was not allowing you to make that decision to change?
I mean, like, just, not just love others, it's like accept others. So, during at that time, you realize, I think Justine just make a very good point, where I just thought I want to throw in something, but she actually elaborated the whole things. Now, if you actually look back, I would like to share with a lot of friends of mine, or even the people out there where they're listening, that it's like to go back to much earlier. It's like whether they're the childhood or anything. And many of us, especially as women, we thought that we could change a person or give them love to change. I actually wish not. If you can't love yourself, you can't change, and this thing is developing, and what for us to love? So that's where I think we drawn in, and we in the end we becoming a victim as well. Just like for me at that time, noticing the person would actually having some unpleasant experience in his life already during the uni days. So I just thought that, maybe I could change and I could love him the way that I could and accept him. And through times, the whole thing would becoming better, which is wrong. Now, if I look back, I think, we should seek for immediate help at that time. We should say, look, if you have issue with yourself, you should fix yourself first before you want other people who come and fix you. And that's so important. It's about your own initiative, whether you want to do that. So like for me, the whole thing is like Justine mentioned just now, is where the cycle, the person who doing it notice the cycle, it's already been, it's not the usual anymore. It's been, you break the cycle. That's where they start to not to do it. So where come to much later, 3 years after all this drama been happening. So I just thought it's really the issue. I got my degree, where I share with Shailesh. I'm actually on my degree and I'm doing the executive degree. So when I complete, I wanted to get out of it. And I'm noticing that it must be because of I'm not being blended into the society. I have no friends. Because I want to keep going back there, keep going back and identity just to please him, just to make things right, just to afraid to trigger him. But when in the end, I told him that, look, I think I got my degree, I can fully integrate, I can go into corporate world or not going to other place where you don't like, perhaps, other guy will be in my working environment. And that's, I noticed the whole pattern change. Change in a way that he maybe finally realized that this person is already no longer can absorb and take in whatever that he wanted to do. And he's the one to tell me, look, in that case, why don't we make a quit in a way that, we end this whole thing, we end this marriage. And, at that time where we just got ended, I really blaming myself so much. Is there anything that I'm not doing enough? I'm not doing it right. Looking back right now, and especially now, I get Justine validations, right? it's so right that it's actually once the pattern has been disrupted, that the change of effect is gone and the whole thing is there. So if you ask me, I'm thankful that at that time I have these realizations that I wanted to get out. And it's because I wanted to get back to the society. I want to really work. And to me, it's like loving you. It's already cannot just by pure love. I need, financial stability and all these things. And that realization just kicked in and to end it. And I couldn't even recognize that much later years, that I only know that, I'm actually, it's a complete person. I'm actually happy, jolly inside. It's not about your status symbol that you have. It's about inside you. So it's actually drawn that we will attract. This is how people look. I want to, go down to my level. So I think it is really, it's actually easy to say than done. But if you're able to identify that, I think it's you can avoid a lot of those strategy or drama anymore. It's about the prevention that we have to take in.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that when you were doing your degree and you were going more and more, that's when he said, okay, I'm done, let's do this quickly, right? Let's get rid of this, let's divorce quickly. And that's that whole wave thing again, because when you were in the relationship with him and you started, feeling good about yourself, and he came in pretending to be here and he knocked you down to here, when you started changing and doing your, your study and starting to feel good about yourself, and he was pushing you and he couldn't, he's like, he needs to go and find someone else to play this game with. You weren't playing with him anymore. You were getting on with what you were doing. And he was like, I'm out. I can't, and the thing is with these people, I don't even think they don't do it at a conscious level. This is all like subconscious. This is the stuff they've been doing from day one. This is who they are. So if you told him to his face, do you realize you've been doing this to me? He'd probably say, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm the perfect guy. I've been supporting you. They have no idea. That's why, when you were saying, Hayley, can we sort these people out? They need to know that they've got issues. They need to know that they're harming, and they need to want to change. And a lot of these personalities don't have the conscious awareness of what they're actually doing. If you had a conversation and you explained it, they wouldn't understand. You try telling a gaslighter that they're gaslighting, they'll say, you're doing it right now to me because you're telling me this. You're trying to mess with me when you've got the problem. So it's if you have someone that doesn't get it and doesn't see it for what it is, the chance of them changing is very slim. And if they go, yes, I'll change, it's generally to say, look, I went and saw that lady, but she told me it was all about you and you're the problem, But see, with you, Amanda, the more you got confident and good within yourself, it didn't roll anymore. It didn't roll, and for him, it was easier to get out. And that's a massive thing for prevention. So, which is what you were talking about. If there is people that are finding themselves in that situation and they are getting ready to leave, but they don't feel safe or comfortable enough to leave, maybe they're coming to see me. A lot of people would come to see me, and you very quickly know that their relationship is not a healthy one or a good one. And it's not my place to say to anybody, you need to leave, you need to get out of there, unless, of course, to me it was police material. I need to contact the police because this is not safe. Mostly it's the quiet type, the gaslighting, it's the bringing down. So my job is helping that person with their self-esteem. What is it they want to do? What did they want to do before they met this person? Because when you build someone up and you get their self-esteem good, the other person is going to either attack more and more and more, or that other person is going to go, I'm not dealing with this, it's too hard, I'm going to go find another person that I can do this victim game thing with. So when these women, or even men, if it is that way around, because there's a lot of women that play these games as well, and a lot of great guys that have been played with their whole lives. But what you find is when someone wakes up and goes, I actually want to go and see a therapist, or I want to work on myself, or I want to go and get a job, or I'm going to bloody study, my language. I never got to study and I'm going to study now. What you find is the other person, if they're very strong about it, will end up backing off and play the victim. You're the one that changed. We were good until you went and studied. You're going to get that. But when you empower yourself, they'll drift. They'll go, they might end up having an affair, you know, they'll do what they need to do to make sure they have that relationship going that they need to be happy, which is the playing one. So for prevention, you know, you want to get out at the start, but to even be able to notice those signs, you need to be good within yourself. So if people are listening and maybe they have been married for 20 years, but they're at the space where they see it for what it is and they want out, the best thing, and they don't know how, is to actually get in and do some work on themselves. Like work on themselves. So because that getting out will be hard, because that person will, it's just their personality type. They are going to attack, and you need to be in a good place to be able to just go, whatever, dude, I'm going that way, you know? Yeah. So working on yourself is such a big thing. Yeah.
But just to add on that, relationships, when we talk about good, pleasant, unpleasant, all sorts of experiences that we have with relations, do you think that there's two options, like it always comes, like either you live and let live, or you forgive and let go? You know, those kind of things that you are extreme drawn to in relationships. And how do you really, because that itself is a traumatic kind of thoughts for any person or any human.
Yeah.
That's in my view. How would you deal with that, Justine? Like,
okay, so to me, it's got to do with the relationship, because like there's different degrees of what is healthy and what isn't healthy, you know.
True.
And in Amanda's situation, that's not healthy. That's the putting her down, walking on eggshells. You know, if you chose just to stay and that's my lot in life, you know, which some people do because of financial stuff, you know, maybe the woman knows that if she goes, she's got nothing, you know, or maybe it's going to upset the kids, you know, all the things, you know, life is expensive. So some people just don't want to get out of that situation. If people do choose to stay in that situation, they also need to choose to get happy. You know, because I tell you what, it's really interesting that when people change, dynamics and relationships can change. I have heard of, not the extreme abuse stuff, but I have heard of people being in relationships, say a woman and man relationship, and the woman is expecting behaviors to happen from the man all the time. You know, every time he comes home, he's nasty and you know what I mean? When that happens, people get into a pattern of everything's the same every day, and it becomes like we talk about subconscious programming. It becomes the norm. And what you find is maybe the male at first was like that when he was younger, but this thing is just going. And when the woman starts to work on herself, she doesn't even need to say anything, but the man comes home and he suddenly treats her better. You know, because her energy has changed. The way she feels about herself has changed, and he's wanting to know why. You know, so if people are wanting to stay in a relationship, you know, either stay and have it or go and get happy. If people are choosing, right, I need to stay, which I know I've got friends even, I need to stay in this relationship because we've got so much together. And if I left, I'd, you know, financially lose so much. What you find is, apart from when you're dealing with real mental illness and abusers, what you find is when the person starts getting happy and doing their own things and starting to make friends and getting a career, the partner or the husband or the wife, the one that was causing what we thought was causing the problems, actually starts to change as well. And they want to, hey, let's go out and do things because they're seeing this person doing things with other people. So, like I said, when it comes to relationships, there's a level of what's not okay and what is okay. And what I tend to find is, like I said, when I am dealing with people that have had narcissistic abuse or physical abuse, you can get the red flag from the beginning. Like I said with Amanda, when did it start? She knew there was stuff at the start. When I'm dealing with people that said our relationship was amazing for 10 years, and then we kind of got into a rut, and now we don't like each other anymore, we don't do things, he's being a bit of a dick with me and stuff. To me, it's like, well, let's get you happy and see if he comes in line. And a lot of the time, the relationships can work through that. But when you've got stuff, when you've got red flags from the very start and they're walking on eggshells, if people do choose to stay in that situation, the best they can do is get happy when the person's not around. you know, have a good, from whatever hours you're at work, you better have some fun, because people do choose to stay. You know, our world is set up where the comfort of having a roof over your head and food on the table can sometimes outweigh the being in a situation you shouldn't be in. But it's everybody's, we have a choice. But once again, when you do work on yourself in any situation, you start to not tolerate stuff, you know, stuff that you overlooked before. When you feel good about yourself, there comes a point that you can't overlook it anymore, because I can't do it, and people tend to walk out. But I'm totally for relationships being able to be saved. Even people that have, you know, had affairs in relationships, I've seen people go quite strong after that, because what happened was just a disconnect between the couples. You know, there was a disconnect and they went looking for it elsewhere. So to me, I think things like that can be saved if people want it, you know, and people are prepared to work on why, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's levels, if that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good insight. Haley, you have got some questions to ask. I think Amanda can elaborate a little bit about her concerns that when she realized and she got out of it. As you were saying, choices. Choices can be of finances, choices can be of happiness, choices can be of lots of different levels, as you were talking about. But to take that choices also is a decision, and to first of all, what is my choice, also to understand, is a big thing for any normal human being. And that becomes a little challenge. And then do you want to continue in that situation of stigma or trauma that are continuing to do, and how long? It will one day burst, because our human mind is human mind. We may say that we can, you know, kill this for another 2 years, another 10 years. But then we have overloaded ourselves. And when we overload ourselves, is it better to take that hard decision, no matter financial situation, no matter happiness situation, create your own? Because I personally feel that what I listen from Amanda is like, she has gone ahead, took the degree, and then she educated herself. And that's where is more important, I think, for humans to understand that educate yourself, whether by academically or by making yourself independent and not dependent, because that's where the whole dependency depends on the choices, whether we want to do or not. So in that regard, I mean, Justine, what would you say for the audiences who are listening, coming from you as an expert, but also they are listening to Amanda, and they have listened to Haley's question as well. What would you say to the message that, you know, as a bold decision making for yourself, or self-loving yourself, coming back to that, spiritually realizing yourself, coming back to that freedom of your mind and choices, and like a free spirit, you know, you can evolve in this world. There is nothing stopping you from making changes that you would like to have, no matter how much hard it is. Unless you try, you don't know if it's hard or easy. But to take that step, what was your message? How do they change their mind frame?
And this kind of situation, it is a bit of a tricky one. Like Amanda being in a relationship, being married, and then choosing to study and getting out of it and doing so well. I mean, that's massively brave. Because even talking in this situation,
Absolutely.
it's not just, you know, breaking up a marriage, it's the stigma that goes with it, you know, the upsetting family, and, oh, but he's a great guy, I can't believe anything that you're saying, you know, because a lot of people do see them as wonderful. So it's a massive, like for you, Amanda, getting out and doing what you've done is incredible. And it's good for people to hear that someone that is, you know, is openly prepared to come and say, hey, I went through this situation and this is what I did. And I am out and I am talking about this stuff. I think you're talking about understanding that we have a choice. We do have choice. Like I said, when our nervous system is wired, our choice is taken away a little bit, because our brain is kind of wired on keeping us safe. And so our mind is preoccupied on, you know, the threat and the danger, like I said early on when we first started. I would say to people that are starting to notice that they're in a relationship that isn't helpful for them, like what Amanda did, she chose to get a career and to study. And I think that's a big thing. It's sitting there and thinking what can I control? Who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And maybe even do little things, and it could be as little as, I know a lot of people that are in quite abusive relationships tend to focus on their looks and exercising and the things that they can control, but actually starting to sit back and go, right, I don't think I can get out of this situation or relationship now, but where do I want to be? So maybe in 3 years, I want to have a degree, and what can I do now to start getting there so that I can be in the situation to get out? Because I know with Amanda, studying, there was a light at the end. If I finish my degree, I can get a job doing this and I'll be okay. And so it's almost setting yourself up. Your brain needs to have the shelter, it needs to have the food, it needs to have some form of stability as a human. And so what you find is when you can put your mind on, the future, what is it that I actually want, instead of what is it that I don't like about right now, especially if people are in a relationship, they're seeing it for what it is. They know they can't leave right now. They know they are going to leave in the future. I'll leave when the kids leave home. But until then, I would be sitting, what can I do in the next few years to make the transition from being in this unhealthy relationship to being a healthy person with a good job, or to be financially okay? Is what can I do in this time to make it so that transition is easy for me? And the roof over the head and the finances is a big thing. We live in a society where we need to be that, but also, like I said before, mentally, like starting to work out, what is it that I need to work on myself to get myself in a space that when it is time to go, that I'm actually going to be okay. Because a lot of people, when they were doing, it's really interesting when you get into developmental trauma, which is trauma under the age of, around 7, the childhood stuff. When I was doing some training recently with this amazing guy, who they did this 30-year research, I think, on children. And what they found was that children that were being abused, physically abused, the rates of mental illness, don't quote me 100% on this, but the rates of mental illness and suicide were higher in the children that were taken away from the abusive family than the children that were left in it. So meaning the effect of trauma on the little baby's brain or the child's brain was worse being taken away from the abusive parents than staying and being abused. Isn't that insane? When we were talking about that, it's like leaves you in the space of, what do? Do we take the kids? Don't we? We're not going to do right here the way our brains are wired. Being around our parents and being around the person that keeps us safe is more important for the trauma part of our brain than getting away and being put in a home with people we don't know. So when you think about being in an abusive relationship, but that relationship comes with safety and security and a roof over the head and food being paid and a credit card and all of this stuff, sometimes our brain is going, well, I might be having this stuff happening, but this is a little bit safer for me than going out in the world where I've got nothing, So for me, it's about what can you do to get to a space where when you walk away, that you're going to be okay, because your mind will find it so much easier. For some people, do you know what it is? It's finding someone else. So what you find is that woman might actually find another partner without knowing, but at a subconscious level, their mind is finding someone else that's going to provide so they can get out of this destructive relationship. And the woman's not purposely going out there, or the man looking to have an affair, but their mind is right. This is a safer option now. Look, there's someone I can go there and I'm going to be okay. And you find that happens quite a bit in these relationships where one partner was what we would call abusive, and then the one that isn't ends up having an affair and leaving, and they're the bad guy. Do you know what I mean? But we're wired to we have to stay safe. We have to be in. So when you look at relationships and look at the brain, as I said at the start, if people are not in good relationships, if people are, like I said, even if that situation happens where I left a really bad relationship, I had an affair or whatever, no one's broken, no one's bad, no one has to feel guilty about these situations. People's minds are doing what they need to do to survive,
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the behaviors that we do, our mind is working exactly how it's meant to be working to keep us safe.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Absolutely. We are almost now made up our time, but I would like Amanda to ask if there is anything that she would like to elaborate or expand and ask few things here, and then we'll go back to Haley for her question she might have.
Okay, I really appreciate that what Justine have mentioned, especially where, a lot of people thought in a domestic violent relationship, the guy must be, projecting themselves a bad or whatever. No, in my situations, it's very charming. Where I took the decision, he asked to end the marriage, and we actually went into the divorce proceeding. It's bad. Everyone pointing at me that I'm a bad person. Projecting, I can tell you the circle of friends, they're not getting involved because this is two-person relationship that they're not command. And family, you need to take time to explain to them. They might not be supportive as well. So that's why I think if, let's say, a person like Justine, whoever women in the relationship, it's good person to speak to. Because like for me, I would say it's still considered lucky because it's like one another. It's like, I'm going through the change of experience and I got it out and I end it then there. But can you imagine some person, they might be in a marriage or family of children. They might live in more than 10, 20 or even 30 years. They want to have some change, perhaps not now because of their children. They have to, know what to do. And I think it's a good thing they reach out for help. At least someone like Justine, they must know what they need to do, able to change things better. And then know when is the time to do that. So I think that is very important. And by the end, throughout when I end the marriage, it's actually 3 years better. It's very ugly. Mediate, we go back and again. And how it's actually got ended, and I finally know it's a relief, is because when you have into all these things, other people who don't know about you. They might even question, Amanda, is that you the one who make the mistake or anything else? Is that not? Even the lawyer representing you, they have to drill and ask all these questions. At that time, I'm lucky enough. I explained, to my lawyer, and I guess that my lawyer is someone who is quite spiritual awakening as well. She identified, she noticed that. So I just share with her, what are all these things you need to do and why the guy will have all this pattern, because by then I already know this person, how he gonna react. And we got it right and we won the case. Come to mediate, he finally giving. And guess what? A person with this kind of trait, they would want to look for person to blame. If I'm the person that can't blame, they would like to blame to my lawyer. They must be thinking, they will be the culprit who make all these things, disaster, who destroy his relationship or his reputation. So that's why, again, if a person then they know that they wanted to change, they only will reach out to a person like Justine. So I don't think in a way the joint couple therapy or this thing is not. It's about a person when you know that you're into the red flag or in a situation like that, you should reach out to help. So if Justine, you ever do any workshop or maybe virtually can reach out to you, do let me know, because I do have people like that somehow, even friends, it's beyond how they have to just tell, because we are not the expert who able to give the advice or to help. Perhaps we have to reach out to a professional like you. Let them know what are their mind thinking, and in the end, they have to make their own decision. They have to take charge of their life, and this is very important to me.
Yeah. And if people are listening to this and struggling, they can reach out to me through Hypnosis New Zealand. I do see a small amount, but I do have people around the world that do the kind of work where they get in, and it's amazing quick work. The way we work, I don't like to hear too much about people's trauma and people's stuff. It's more about just shifting what's going on now in a very quick way to be able to move forward and create change. When you are in these situations, there is always stuff that has to be worked through. Like we always do have a part in our story. Do you know what I mean? You might go into a relationship that ends up being quite yuck. And I'm never saying that we draw in or we choose this stuff, but we all have stuff within us that needs to be worked through. We all have developmental trauma. Like when we talk about developmental trauma, it's waking up in the cot in the dark for the first time and no one's around, and a 1-year-old baby feeling not loved anymore. Well, it's not, childhood stuff and the things that our mind sees as threats and dangers are not normally the big stuff, the big T traumas. We've all got stuff to work through. So when people are working through relationship problems and issues, when they work on their own stuff, they can be present and see the relationship they're in with the eyes of the person they are now, not with all of their bullshit, if I'm allowed to say that, not with all of their stuff. So reaching out and working with people when you are going through a hard time really does help. People that don't know your partner, friends are amazing and stuff, but your friends might see the guy that's not the real guy. He might put on a show, he's putting on a show. So when you're talking to your friends about your husband and they're hearing what's happening, they're probably sitting there thinking, oh, maybe she is a bit weird because all I've seen is he's a great guy, and how many friends turn on people when they go through divorce and stuff because they just have not seen that personality. So when you do have someone outside of it that doesn't know him or her and that you can actually bounce stuff off that's not close, you can start to see things more for what they are. And I think it's really important that you have your own person that you can talk to. Like you said, not so much even a shared one. You can have someone that they can give you help with your perspective on things, not like throwing the ball back and forward, So reaching out and helping. But this has been a good conversation. I'm going to go back to Hayley just quickly because we've been talking about leaving. I will say that I do really believe that if people have been together for quite a while and for some reason maybe they're growing apart or maybe life has gotten away where there's things that are going on and they're not feeling good together, but it's just situational, it's just stuff. And these two people do actually want to make it work. If they're prepared to work on their stuff, and maybe sometimes when we have situations happen in our life, our partner's face can even get caught up in that. I won't explain today how it happens, but you could have like stuff going on in your emotional part of the brain. You come home, you get triggered, you look at your partner's face, and from then on, every time you see your partner, that yucky feeling comes up in their body. They did nothing wrong. And then suddenly your brain's starting to see that partner as a threat. Now, if you've got that stuff going on where the connection was amazing for ages and both people want to make it work and both people are prepared to do the work, I'm totally open. People can, and I've seen it with friends, with more open-minded spiritual, couples that are both prepared to own their own stuff and make it work. I've seen people have amazing relationships after having a hard time. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it's just, it's noticing what is abuse and what is stuff, and then what is just people having struggles and maybe, putting those struggles onto each other.
I think sometimes getting advice from friends can be just as dangerous as helpful because they're speaking from either their own bias, their own experience, or the classic words of narcissism and gaslighting gets thrown out, and then the person who is feeling their self-worth be eroded for whatever reason, they get confused, they don't know what to do, and they do listen to their friends' influence. So I think it is really important to note that it's not always so simple to tell, and I think it is to focus on building up your self-worth first and potentially speaking to somebody like you. Absolutely. A good therapist, whatever that may be, a spiritual therapist, a counselor, we're still human and we still have our stuff. We still have our stuff. We have our trauma, but what we're trained, but we know to do is not to put our stuff onto our client. So I'll have in the past, I'll have a woman sitting there and she's telling me about her partner, and boy, I've been there. Like, she's like, and he's turning his phone over. He's never done that before. And I'm just sitting there like, red flag, red flag, red flag. I know this was my ex, but you, as a therapist, your job is to not
not go, hey, I think he's dodgy or whatever. It's about what is going on inside that person to make them stay in that relationship. So I always look for what emotion is coming through, what stuff is being brought up, what can we shift. So I'm not a mate, and so we're kind of taught to not be your mate, to not go, hey, yeah, I think that's dodgy. And the thing is, when you are, like you said, when you're talking with mates, and if mates have been through the same kind of thing, and you go, hey, he turned his phone over, your friend will go, oh yeah, mine used to do that when he was bad. Do you know what I mean? So everyone's bringing their trauma to the table, whereas a good therapist, I don't know all of them because I can't count for them, but what they generally do is, even if they have an idea that they've been there before, we switch off our ideas. We're there, we're going to work out what is going on, how can we help this person, not how can we get into this little conversation. Because I'm a completely different person with my friends. I'll be like, hell yeah, I've been there before, So there's quite a separation between, like, maybe Justine the human, and then this is the person that's here to work with you. So that's the difference between working with someone and then having mates and friends helping you out.
Yes, very well said, Justine. That was good advice and good insights, because good therapist or good person is very important. Just like when we get into relationships, we think it's good person, but then you got to identify that. So do you want to add anything, Hailey? I'm going to close now. But
maybe one word of advice from each of you
that would be great.
In terms of how we can raise our children to be strong and resilient, and hopefully never have to experience anything like this in the first place, because ultimately prevention is the best cure.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Can't deny. Couldn't agree more with that. So give us, you go for Justine first. What's your
kids. When we do memory work, the one thing I found is that memories tend to stick in the emotional part of the brain and become a body trauma. A body trauma is, we have a memory come up, we remember the flower in Nana's garden. When we have a memory that's stored not in the correct place, the memory comes up and we have a feeling in our body like anxiety, a sick stomach. Those are the ones that cause us big problems. What we find is that these traumas tend to get stuck through lack of understanding more than anything else. It's lack of understanding. So that, like I said, the child waking up in the dark and no one's around, and their perception is, oh, I mustn't be lovable, or, that's just they don't think at that age, but that's kind of the understanding. What I find a lot is that when we do go back to maybe we go back to a childhood thing where a kid's in the room and mum and dad are fighting in the other room, and the kid thinks it's about them. And so when we do a memory, changing the way the memory is stored, the message we give to the child is, hey, you know what? This is not your stuff. This is mum and dad's. You're perfect just the way you are. All of that kind of information. I think when you're working with kids, I think as a parent, if kids understand that maybe if you're having a hard time, maybe you are going through something really hard and you're finding it hard to hug the kid or express yourself, and you don't want to talk to them because you're really upset. I think if a kid's coming over to you and running, go, Mummy, I made this picture, and you just can't deal with them because you're emotionally not good, and you're like, I'm just tired, and you push them away, that 2-year-old, their perception is, oh, I've done something wrong, I'm not a good person, but if you were to turn around and say, hey, look, Mum's not having a good day today, I love your picture, but I really need time, this is Mum stuff, I think the kid can start to understand that, to have some understanding that they're not broke, there's nothing wrong with them. Kids tend to take on a lot of our shit, and we can't even help it as parents. We're human. Kids are going to have issues when they grow up. They are going to have a relationship. We all are. Doesn't matter how perfect our childhood is. We're going to all have stuff. But what I find is the biggest, it's misunderstandings. It's kids taking on their parents' stuff because they feel like they're the reason why dad left, or they're the reason why mum doesn't want to talk to them, or they're the reason why. Do you know what I mean? It's about explaining to kids that, hey, you know what, I'm just having a bad day and it's okay. You're fine. I just need a bit of time. So talking about that kind of stuff, I think, is massive for kids. Massive.
Absolutely. That's a good advice. I think feeling comfortable with the kids' mind and the child's brain, and dealing with that in that format is always, that's why we say sometimes a good old saying, like when you want to deal with your child, act like a child, be like a child, so that they understand your
So they
own.
understand. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And that's what I would say as well. What would you say, Amanda, if, as your experience for prevention? What would you say that how to prevent this kind of trauma or this kind of situation when you get into relation? Because we create relations, you created, we create relations, and then we fall into that trap of our own. But then we also come out of that trap of our own. Sometimes some people don't want to. I like one of your quote last time when we spoke, you were talking about like you were in the darkest and then you became the boldest. I love that quote. You become the boldest when you are in the darkest. What message today you would give?
Yeah, like I say, right, the star only will get brightest when you get into the darkness. It's so dark that only you can see yourself, identify yourself. I'm guess that, like I mentioned before, it's not, you know what, by doing all this is not like how we're able to solve the issue ever, but we're giving like awareness to share with people where you get into again, even for myself, where we get into a relationship again, but at least you able to identify. And like what just now Justine give a very good indication, the red flag. So if you know that the red flag, it's not reasonable, it's not doing anything well, your inner voice, anyone that have like self-awareness or self-conscious, that will know when you know all this, right? Just step out of it, give some time and relook into things, because if things somehow you will know the patterns and don't get along with the way. So I think this is one of the big thing. And of course, if you get into a very serious, very confused stage of mind, whatever, that's where just now I shared also, like Justine, whether she will work virtually with the client or whatever. I mean, someone can at least talk to someone, because you get yourself out of it. Then you will know, you're able to evaluate yourself. And I think evaluation is very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Very good.
Thank you.
You want to say anything, Hayley?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for your elaborations. I think people will find this incredibly helpful. I think it'll be really good for people who are struggling, especially when they're trying to figure out whether they are in a relationship that they need to potentially leave, or whether it's a relationship where they can work on together and have hope for it. I think that's one of the biggest questions that surround people, especially in terms of gaslighting and so forth. When it's full of, when it's physical abuse, it's a lot easier to pick and realize where you're at.
To identify.
So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's great. Thank you so much, Justine, for these beautiful insights. And Amanda, I cannot thank you more than sharing your own personal experiences. It takes a boldest, as you are already a boldest, which I, in my view, now. And it's really for people who are listening, they need to be boldest, because we are all humans. We may not be experts but we can become experts like Justine if we educate ourselves, which is also a strong point of view of Amanda yourself when you said you are a big educator, advocate for education and awareness. And this domestic violence topic is something which is all about awareness. It's not something we are giving you to do this and you will become all of a sudden good or bad. It's not about that. It's about how we communicate with each other. And this is where we create relationships through communications, and we develop relationships. We come out of good communications. We come out of bad issues, bad concerns, and still make it good. So I always feel that pleasant, unpleasant experiences are always there with humans. But as Justine pointed out, there are too many things that you could do, simple ways that you could understand yourself, self-love, and all that stuff that she said was incredible advice. But also giving our own power to take back that our own control with us, and we can still make those little changes that we want to make. And I think to me, what I learned today, listening to Justine, listening to Amanda, and listening to Hayley's questions, which I personally feel that, in my view, that take the action as early as possible, rather than as soon as you find that there is a gaslighting, or whether there is you sense something, then you either seek for help or seek for professional, or take proper advice, or take your own decisions in your hand, so that you're not dependent. And the sooner you take, the sooner you can make your life better, because we all have one life, one journey. But then every single moment we want to live happily, blissfully, pleasantly. So why not take the decisions promptly? That's what my take from this conversation. So once again, thank you once again so much, Amanda, for sharing this beautiful journey of yours and creating this awareness and advocating for this. And Justine, I cannot thank enough for you to give those experts insights. And my co-host, as usual, is beautiful, Hailey. I am going to end this, but we would like to elaborate this topic, but this is not something that we want to finish here and say that this is what it is. There is a lot of things in this, and a lot of things experiences people differently, but it is for now. We can't extend more than this. So we will come back with some different layers of this whole topic, which is what Amanda wants to do, awareness as well. The more you talk, the more you make aware, it's much better. So with that note, I thank you once again from the bottom of my heart to come on this NZ World News Positive, that we bring speakers positively, who are positive, who give positive messages, who give positive information. And this is something that we can create a world of our own positives, because we can spread awareness through social media, through all the technical terms that we have at our disposal. Why not make the use best to it? And look, we are having from you all the way Malaysia. So that is something which is also, we are all humans everywhere.
Yeah.
We face the similar traumas. So why not talk and communicate? So I will end that here. Thanks once again, Justine, for your great insights and help.
Welcome.
And I will close here, and good night, goodbye, everyone. We will come back again with some good speakers once again and give you some good topics. But if you have any feedback, if you need any questions to be asked, Justine is always there. And if you want to ask any triggering questions to Amanda to see how she dealt with it, then yes, by all means, please do write to us and we will give you the feedback as soon as possible. Thanks once again. Bye for now.